So I wanted to share one of my DIY projects. So I do a lot of DIY stuff, everything from electronics to obviously making videos to photography to more traditional DIY stuff like woodworking, metalworking, things like that. I do a lot of gardening as well. So I've got a really large area in the backyard. I believe it's a 14-foot by 16-foot or 14-foot by 18-foot raised bed that I made probably about 10 years ago. And one of the things that I like to do with that every few months is to add compost to it. So the DIY project that I did was basically making a backyard composter. So the first thing we have to do is ask, well, what exactly is compost? So compost is basically the broken down organic matter typically from food scraps. That's when people say compost, that's typically where they use the word. But compost can be leaf matter, it can be wood, it can be any organic matter that's been broken down. And when it's been broken down by a number of different organisms, everything from bacteria to funguses to worms to insects. So the benefit of compost is that the organic matter is pre-digested essentially into a form that's easier for plants to use as a fertilizer. Now, there's tons of different ways you can compost. There are little desktop or countertop composters that some people actually keep in their house. I don't particularly subscribe to that because sometimes compost can be a little smelly. And then some of the other reasons why I don't subscribe to that is that some of the most beneficial things for compost are things like worms, insect larvae, things like that, things that you definitely don't want in your house. So traditionally, compost was basically just the compost pile in the backyard and the farm or the homestead, where you basically just threw all your grass clippings, your kitchen waste, now plant-based kitchen waste, not animal-based, because that can go rancid and can draw unwanted pest animals to your yard. Which actually brings up a point as to why I actually don't care for this type of composting, at least not where I am, because I have a couple of dogs. And so if I have some big open pile like this, the dogs are going to dig through it, they're going to eat something, they're going to get sick, it's just not going to be pretty. The other thing people will do is they'll make a box, sort of like in this photo here. I don't particularly care for that either, just because it's difficult to turn the compost, which you have to do periodically to kind of help aerate it, get the hot spots mixed up where you have, blooms of bacteria, things like that, just to keep it mixed to help keep it digesting. I don't like this because it makes it difficult to get in and out of. The commercial unit, as you can see here, that I purchased several years ago, has these little sliding doors on the sides that sound great in theory. The problem is when it's full of compost, you open the door, you either can't get the door to open, or you open the door and just trying to get your shovel in there to shovel from the bottom to basically pull it out, transfer it, and then dump it on the top to kind of mix it up. It's more trouble than it's worth. So what I actually was doing for a long time was I literally would just pick up the composter, move it over 2 or 3 feet, and then shovel from the top of the pile. I'd lift the composter off of the compost, and then I would shovel that back into the composter so that the stuff that was on the top then got buried onto the bottom. So what prompted me to do this DIY project was we wanted to add a second composter to be able to compost more leaf matter, more lawn clippings, things like that. And I didn't realize that when I purchased this commercial composter that the thing cost $100. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to spend $100 for something that I can make just as easily myself and spend a whole lot less money. So my project started out as a 55-gallon black plastic rain barrel, just like this one right here. Now, I've been lucky enough to where the area that I live in is an hour up the road from one of the largest pickle manufacturers in the country. And so they regularly will get rid of their pickle barrels that they actually use to pickle the cucumbers in. And I was able to purchase 4 of these for $15 a piece. So 3 of them, as you can see in this picture, I actually use as rain barrels and catch rainwater. So that left me with a 4th barrel that wasn't being used for anything, so I decided to turn that into a DIY composter. Now, You may or may not have someplace local like I do, but there are a lot of places that you can find rain barrels for sale, and I've seen them for sale of roughly $30, I think, at some of the Whole Foods and places like that. If you check Craigslist, you can usually find any food manufacturers and even a lot of chemical places that will sell these used on Craigslist. You just want to make sure that you're getting one that's food grade. It hasn't been used to hold anything that's toxic, anything like that. But typically the food grade ones are listed as such, and you can always ask the person selling it where the barrel was used before you got it. So as you can see here, my barrel was actually tapered at the bottom and at the top, roughly maybe a fifth or a sixth of the way up from the ground, and then maybe a fifth or a sixth of the way down from the top was the taper. So that gave me the perfect spot to actually draw a line around it and then cut. So what I did was I basically marked it, and then I just drilled a hole about 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and then used jigsaw to basically go all the way around and cut the bottom off the barrel. So the next thing that I did was drilled some holes in the sides of the barrel to allow water runoff to go out, for excess rains, things like that, as well as for letting air into the compost. So what I did was I stood the barrel up, and on the top of the barrel drew a line down the center, basically bisecting it into two half pies. Then I drew one across that one, cutting it into quarters. Then I did the diagonals, basically making it into like a circle cut into 8 pies. And then I basically traced those lines down the side just so that I had an even 8 set of 4 holes, as you can see in this picture here. So the best part was, that's it. I spent $15 on the barrel. Like I said, it may cost you more money depending on where you are, but Craigslist is a great resource. So I spent $15 and about 20 minutes worth of time to drill some holes and cut the bottom off the barrel. And what I ended up with was what you see in this picture here, that when I need to turn the compost, I literally just lift the barrel off the compost, move it over a few feet, and then shovel. The pile basically stands up on its own. I basically just shovel it back into the composter. Or for the time being, I can actually move it to the other composter that I already have. But these are so simple to make. You can make several of these, and have 2 or 3 of them in your backyard if you have enough room to keep one, because they're not an eyesore at all, like some of the other composters, DIY composters that I've seen. So one thing that I didn't mention was that because this was actually made to be a rain barrel, it came with this really nice lid that the plastic part of the lid was drilled, was cut, had these holes cut in it, and then they had mounted screen underneath it to keep leaf matter and sticks and things like that from falling down into the rain barrel to help keep it clean. So what's nice about this is if, for example, you have a lot of fruit that you bought and it's gone overripe and you just aren't going to eat it, you can put it in the composter. You throw this lid on it for a week or two while the fruit starts to break down, and that'll keep wasps and bees from getting in there and taking up residence in your yard. So I don't tend to keep this on the top of my composter except in situations like that. I usually leave it open, but if I do put fruit and things like that in there, I will put it down to keep wasps and bees out. So if you like this video, click that thumbs up down there at the bottom. If you like the content on my channel, go ahead and subscribe for more. Constantly doing stuff, constantly doing DIYs, constantly doing product reviews, whatever. So now down in the comments section, if you have made your own composter or if you've done something like this, let me know. I'd like to hear about what you've done. I might replicate what you did and see how it works out for me. Like I said, so far this is working really well for me. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.